Hello, it's time for that future state reviews because it's a gimmick for 2 months and there's too many books. We have to split it up in two segments. So, Vince, this was your horrifying idea, which was to split up the segments of the show and covers future state for DC, while we'll then, break and then come back for the regular show. So, any non DC books will still be in there. So, the conclusion of Death Metal will be in there, but this is just for the future state books. So I'm Mike with you guys.
Vincent.
I'm Dan.
Welcome to 2021 as Future State is kicked off. There were 6 books that came out this week. We read, 5 of them? We didn't read Flash, but we read The Next Batman, Superman and Metropolis, Wonder Woman #1, Swamp Thing, and Harley Quinn. So, with that, we'll dive right in. I took we'll all talk about one and then we'll all break, the same standard format. So I'll kick things off with The Next Batman #1, which was by John Ridley, Nick Darrington, and Tamara Bonavillin. And this is definitely one of the more hyped up of these releases in the future state, lineup. A lot to do with the mystery of who the new Batman is, but also for the fact that DC has brought in the scriptwriter for 12 Years a Slave, John Ridley. So I'm going to say, yeah, this was definitely one of the more hyped up ones, exactly. And did it deliver? I'd say overall, yeah, this is a good comic, but not much happens in it, but I do like it. The biggest highlight for me was Darrington's art with Tamara Bonevillen's colors, and the entire issue is highlighted by these vibrant and cool colors, giving a lot of life and dimension of this more, future dystopian Gotham that's been overrun by this group called the Magistrate. So it's basically a giant police state that controls everything, and that's kind of fueling the issue, especially since almost every scene of this takes place at night. We follow this new Batman as he takes down criminals and saves 2 brothers from being indoctrinated into this like Bane gang that's being set up at Little Santa Prisca. And then we're rapidly introduced to a lot of different characters, like these brothers, the Bane gang. There's 2 Gotham detectives that we're introduced to. Told very fast about this. A lot of building fast here, as this is only 4 issues, and then a lot of it, hinging on Luke Fox, who we are led to believe is the next Batman, and he's going to visit his sister who's in the hospital in a coma, and he runs into Tim Fox, who's now going by Jace, and this is it's all presented it's presented in the issue that it's supposed to be Luke, because we see him, after Batman's on the page, that he's waking up late in the, middle of the afternoon. But DC ruined it because the solicits and the press releases, we already know the next Batman is Jace. So it being written in this manner that's trying to keep you guessing and wondering, it doesn't work and falls completely flat because, we already know who Batman is. So, that's a strike on, editorial, which once again has spoiled something. Overall, this was pretty good. I expect it to get better as it continues, but from the debut, I'd say this is anything exceptional or special, but it has a chance to be. I'm excited to see where it goes. And then this is one of the ones that have backup features, which is part of this new, DC initiative with backup features. The first one was Brandon Thomas and Sumit Kumar, with outsiders focused mostly on Katana here as she battles the Magistrate hideout and helps out Duke. Black Lightning makes a last-minute save, but he's composed all of Lightning now. All right. The art was the highlight here with the cool cross-section page of the multi-floor infiltration and fight, but Darrington did that better with Bendis and Batman Universe. It seems like ever since that page that the cool infiltration cross-section fight page is what the comics is what hallway fights were to superhero television shows for a few years. And the other one was Arkham Knights by Paul Jenkins and Jack Herbert. Cool to see someone make use of Astrid Arkham, as we saw her in Tomasi's Detective Comics run, and I would have easily pegged that character to be, just thrown to obscurity. But no, Paul Jenkins resurrects her here to bring her in for Arkham Knights. And so she's staying in Wayne Manor, and she's like rounding up all the villains and with the goal to not only recondition them, but also like fight down the Magistrate and try to take back Gotham. The fun trope where the villains become the good guys. lots of focus on Dr. Phosphorus in this, which I think is pretty cool. Overall, though, I think it's too wordy by Jenkins, and his scripting is taking away from the art. It feels like they're trying to squeeze as much stuff in as possible, as he has to only get, he only gets 2 chapters here, as issues 2 and 3 are going to be different backups from 1 and 4. So that's, he only gets 2 chapters, so he's got to stuff as much in. But I like this. I didn't love it though, but it was definitely hyped up like you were going to love it. Thoughts on the next Batman?
So yeah, just some things from me. I like the idea of the Bane gang. I thought that was kind of cool to see like a bunch of people like dressed up as Bane, kind of taking on the city. Yeah, like you said, the art. If we're comparing all 3 of these features here, the actual main issue definitely steals the show with the art. I mean, it's definitely the best of the 3 in my opinion. When did Katana get a jetpack? Has she always had like a jetpack to fly around and do stuff with, or?
That's a future state thing.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was like, that's a little weird. And that cross section scene. What's that indie issue that we were just reading that had a scene like that as well? I forget what it was called.
Homesick Pilots just had one.
Yes, Homesick Pilots. Yeah. So that's kind of what I thought back to when I watched that. But otherwise, yeah. I don't know. Kind of got more underwhelming as it went along.
Yeah, this thing has been hyped up. I will correct Mike that it was the marketing and PR team that spoiled it, not editorial.
Doesn't matter. Someone spoiled it.
Yeah,
So
I mean, yeah. I'm just cutting editorial slack and blaming the role that I do as well.
Oh, okay. You're taking the blame.
I didn't. Despite it being so hyped up, I kind of forgot or didn't know that this was Darrington. So I was really impressed by the art in the main story, and Bonvillain's colors really complete it. I really enjoyed the main story, even though, like, you explained how we know because of PR that it's not Luke and that it's Tim, but it's like kind of weird because the pacing of the story totally makes it seem like it's Luke.
Yeah.
So it's going to be this reveal thing, but I feel like the pacing it so clearly suggests that I might even have to like read this again to figure out like how it could possibly not be Luke. But whatever. I actually do like the Bane gang idea a little bit, but literally calling them Bane Lethos a little dumb.
Well, then we have but my takeaway from that though is it's not unlike a future Gotham with gangs inspired by villains. Batman Beyond had the Joker's gang.
Yeah.
So this is nothing new. This is just a different.
I'm just talking about the name Bane Lethos.
No, I know. I'm just talking about the concept of future Gotham with different gangs in it. Like, oh, okay, that's neat, but it's not a new concept. And then we get the Red Hood gang at the end of this too.
Yeah, and I thought the backup stories on this issue were weak, and that's interesting because the later issue that we're going to talk about that also had backups. I kind of felt the opposite, but we'll get into that more later. It's also interesting to see the Arkham Knight, who we haven't seen, I think, since that arc.
Yeah.
And obviously it's not Tomasi writing this story, so that's interesting to note. But that's pretty much all. I'm definitely continuing with this
to do 2 chapters. But yeah, I mean, we liked it, didn't love it. It seems is the consensus here.
Yeah, but so since Future State is so short and everything, and we'll probably do it when the actual DC books debut and we try out a lot of them. Are we all continuing on this series?
Yeah, I'll continue on with it. This is also one of the ones that's getting longer. Most of these are 2 issues. This is 4.
Yeah, I think the ones with the backups are longer.
Yeah, with the fluff page counts too. That's why they'll be longer to have the extra chapters. So, Dan, you drew for Superman.
Yes. So our next Future State issue is Superman of Metropolis #1, also featuring 2 backup stories. This issue is written by Sean Lewis with art by John Timms. Our first story opens to Superman, Jonathan Kent, saving a little kid from being shot at from a Trojan riot in the streets. So I guess they call them zealots or something like zealots. Excuse me. So Superman then flies up and destroys brain cells, who I guess is like a descendant or like some type of version of Brainiac, I guess. In a surprising twist, John shrinks Metropolis to keep it safe, and he takes it back to the Fortress of Solitude, I'm assuming, where Supergirl shows up and questions John about shrinking Metropolis, and that he has to return it back to its normal size. She is then taken under Brain Cell's influence and attacks John when the military shows up with all of these like pilotless drones as well to take Metropolis back. And John tries explaining to Kara, a Supergirl, why he shrank Metropolis before the army steps in further to take the city back. Brain Cell fights off both of our heroes and escapes with Metropolis, and that is where our story ends. So to be continued. Looks like Brain Cells has the Metropolis in hand now. So interesting, not weird like name of the villain, I guess, but whatever. Moving on here to our first backup story, we have a story about Mr. Miracle, written by Brandon Easton with art by Valentin De Landro. Mr. Miracle is exploring some strange barrier in the city when he's ambushed by robots. He fends them off and flies off further to discover that it is what it is before being attacked by even bigger robots, to be continued. So assuming that's the barrier of the shrinkage of the city, I guess. I think both of these are happening in the same time span as the main story. Our second backup story is Guardian, written by Sean Lewis again, with art by Cully Hammer and Michael Avon Omen. In Metropolis, the Trojan Zealots, as I mentioned earlier, have made their way into the city, as we see the Guardian driving an ambulance full of explosives. We then flash back a little bit and see people of Metropolis like trying to break the glass and get out of the shrinkage, like the globe that they've been trapped in. And Guardian tries to keep the peace. So we kind of get some like commentary on how he has to kind of keep the peace now because of what's happened to Metropolis. He also goes to save Jimmy Olsen, who has been captured. So that's kind of our next area of the story for that. So I don't know. I thought this was okay. It's cool to see like these backup stories kind of tied in together with obviously the main story, which I guess that's what all these are really intended to do. But I thought these did a good job and definitely provided some different perspectives on the main story. So it wasn't too bad. What do you guys think?
Vince can go first.
Okay. I thought it was kind of fine. Putting John in this role, I mean, it makes sense for the future state. And even if you're a fan of John as a kid, like it's everyone knows that this would be John's future down the line. There's one scene in the main story where it's the classic thing of a couple panels of like, these are adventures that you haven't seen. And one of them is the Time Luchadors, which sounds pretty fun. But as I mentioned earlier, I thought the backups in this issue were better than the main story. They both had really unique, non-traditional superhero style art. Obviously worth noting, the Mr. Miracle here is
Shiloh Norman.
Yeah, Shiloh Norman, blanking on his name, rather than Scott Free. And then, I mean, the main thing here for me was the art on the backups, Valentin De Landro, and then Cully Hamner and Michael Omen. Really great artists that you wouldn't necessarily expect here. Though it is interesting, like I feel like obviously Omen and I think a little bit Landro, like they're like tangentially, you almost would think of them as Bendis people. And I think John Timms was drawing some of Young Justice with Bendis. So it's all weird.
The second half of it, pretty much.
It's almost weird where this is like a pseudo, like Bendis adjacent creative team, and obviously the aged up John and everything like that. So it's interesting to see, future state, how we see certain elements of the Bendis era and certain elements of going forward, because the other main Superman book, there might actually be more than two. I'm sure there is, but the other big one is by the guy who's going to take over Superman going forward, Philip Kennedy Johnson, and he's going to be taking over both books. And so Sean Lewis, as far as I know, actually, I don't even know if he's writing anything post Future State. If he is, it hasn't been announced yet, or it's definitely not Superman. So it's just interesting here. Though, on that same note, I believe that some of these backups, like Mr. Miracle, particularly Mr. Miracle, actually jumps between the two Superman books, which is also interesting, in the publishing strategy on DC side.
Yeah, well, that's something to comment overall. I don't know how this backup featured thing is going to work. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's going to fail spectacularally with them, with an inflated page count of $4.99 an issue for 22 pages and then 22 pages of backup features. I just don't understand how people are going to pay for $4.99 an issue. I don't see it working. You know, and other than that, and then carrying it over into multiple books I think is also a bad idea. But yeah, I couldn't get into this. I don't know what it was. I just thought like it was numbing to me. I just looked like I was reading just words on a page to me. Honestly, with the Superman feature, I was like, I don't care. Like it didn't grab me at all. And then because of that, I didn't really care to read the backups. I flipped through them, and yeah, the art was good, but I didn't read the stories. So no, this was a thumbs down from me.
I'll actually add one last comment before we move on to one of the books I'm covering. Is that if it isn't clear already from the couple books we've covered, is that the Future State books, it's like they're not all in the same timeline. They're both in some indeterminate future, but they could be different futures, different points in the future, things like that. But I think some of them, like one or two, might be in the same future. And I don't know how clear they're going to make that, if they will at all. Because, like, for example, here, this is a future where, Clark, he's referenced here. I don't think he's dead. I don't know what's happened to him. And it may be that he's off-world.
World, apparently.
Yeah, I think so. If these books are in the same thing, which we'll find out when we read that, I'm not 100% certain. But he's referenced here. But John is obviously Superman. He's going by Superman. But Kara, who's, she's probably 20 years older than him in this timeline, even with the Bendis, accelerated age or whatever, she's still going by Supergirl. When I'm also certain that there's a book called Superwoman starring her, which is probably set, even if it's a different continuity, it's probably set around the same point in the future. So it's kind of weird that she's still Supergirl at this point in time.
I think next Batman, Superman and Metropolis, and Wonder Woman all have to be the same, because we get a Superman and Wonder Woman team up. It's Yara Flor and John, and what is it? World's Finest is John and next Batman, and then Justice League. All three of them are on the Justice League. So I'm assuming all of those are taking place in the same time sphere, with however that's working. But yeah, I also have to say this is probably the Superman book that I was least excited for out of like the four they announced too. So I don't know. I just also felt that John Timms' art, John's face changes so much in the issue. It never looks the same twice. It's never consistent, which is one of my gripes with John Timms. So,
all right. Speaking of the quickly referenced Wonder Woman, we'll move into my book, Future State Wonder Woman #1, writing and art by Joelle Jones, colors by Jordi Belair. So this is, just like all the other books, this is an alternate/future version of Wonder Woman. This is Yara Flor from the Amazon. I guess there's a small chance I'm mispronouncing that, but no idea. So this also has connection to mythology, but there's both Brazilian mythology. Obviously Brazil is a humongous country with a long history, so I don't know if there's specific cultures in reference here. I'm ignorant to that. The book doesn't, clarify that, so I'm just going to say Brazilian. And then traditional Greek mythology that you often see linked with Wonder Woman. She's got a Pegasus named Jerry. She also has a cute butt, which I will say is kind of emphasized in this book. Like, there are a lot of panels that are kind of like a mid shot, like slightly up. Then she gets into a spat with a character that I believe is also totally new here, named Kaipora, who is a tiny little redhead chick, and she rides a boar, which is also, that's cute. I like seeing a little person riding the wild boar. So they have like a little bit of a misunderstanding fight. Then they chill out and they head to the underworld because they are figuring some stuff out. Yara is trying to rescue her warrior sister or something, and it's not 100% clear, who she's referencing here. I don't think it's Diana. I think it's a different character, or maybe it's Diana. So first, to get to the underworld, they go through this weird airport-looking checkpoint. So there's some jokes about like kind of a security taking forever and things like that. And then they get to the River Styx, but they forgot to bring money, so they basically like steal from this sumo wrestler and then get in a fight with him. And in the end, the big splash page is that they just woke up Cerberus. The art here is really great. Both, obviously I dig Joelle Jones' style, and Jordi Belair is, probably one of the 5 greatest comic book colorists of all time, just completely on fire with the palette here and all of the mood and everything. And I like the characterization so far here as well. I haven't really read much of Joelle Jones' writing. I didn't really touch her Catwoman, which I've heard kind of mixed things on. And I haven't gotten the chance to read Lady Killer, which most people really love. But I thought so far this issue really good. I like the characterization of Yara Flor. She's kind of feisty. She's not remotely just a palette swapped version of Diana. And this character Kaipora is fun as well. So I think this was my favorite issue, but we'll probably do something like that at the end of this segment.
Yeah, this was definitely the most second hyped up, I think, when they, did the teases on this. I mean, this character is getting a television show on the CW and is sticking around post Future State to just, give you the idea of how quickly popular she's become. And I did like this. I like Joelle Jones's art, obviously. I'm going to echo everything you say about Jones's art and Jordi Belair's colors. Writing not as good as Lady Killer, which I have read, but still very good and fun. And on the scale, Lady Killer and this are wildly different things. So it's not even. I don't even think it's fair to compare them. But no, this is really fun. I did enjoy this. And I think maybe this is our first one that didn't have backup features, and I think the fact that it wasn't, it didn't have them. I don't know. I feel like it helped it. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I think just having this main story definitely brings more focus to it, and yeah, I'm definitely sticking around for the next issue, I guess. Yeah, the splash page with Cerberus at the end is also really, really cool. Just like the way that was drawn, just really amazing. So really cool to see that.
No, and I like the fact that we're going to get to see more of Yara Flor too, with the team ups with Superman, and then not only sticking around post Future State, but also Justice League as well. I'm kind of excited to see what they go around and do there. And I like the costume a lot. It's a really good costume with the colors, like the red and gold. Really, I really like it. So I'll go to Swamp Thing number 1, and this is Ram V and Mike Perkins. I don't know. We probably should have been saying this, or we haven't. But yeah, Joelle Jones is continuing on as writer and artist. Excuse me. Post Future State with that, but also Ram V and Mike Perkins, I believe, is going to be the team with Swamp Thing post Future State as well. And then so those are the two that are, because the other 2 books obviously aren't going to be. But this seems to be this is Future State Swamp Thing number 1. This seems to take place in a far future where there's very little humans left on Earth, and Swamp Thing kind of yearns to study the ones that are left. It seems like he's forgotten about humans and wants to relearn them. So he's kind of used his powers in this kind of dystopian world to create more plant people who he's aligned with. He's kind of like seen as their father, or like their god. He's referred to as the Green Father. And like we get these intersection pages, almost like scene breaks of these cool anatomy pages detailing how Swampy came up with all like the necessary components of creating these people. These people are searching for humans as well, and they end up finding a human from the Star Sanctuary, but Star is written like Star Labs, so that's the tip off. and then he learns that they are using obsidian to try to bring in an age of darkness, and then also we see the Floronic Man at the end. So I did not expect to see obsidian, which, hey, that's cool. We'll touch on it in the regular show because we did this first, and then we'll do it after. But with Future State, it seems that any and all characters can be brought back from the dead. That was their clear, from death metal. That's their clean slate swipe for this reboot. So completely makes sense for why Obsidian can be here. But yeah, didn't expect to see him. So I'm definitely intrigued to where it's go. Mike Perkins is great with the swamp people in this book. I'm interested to see where it's going, and I like the art. So this might be the one that I liked the most from this week. I think it's a toss-up between this or Wonder Woman.
Yeah, this was pretty good. Obviously, I'm a big Swamp Thing fan. I like the green pen anatomy drawings, too, of how Swampy created more beings and mimicked the human template. And this is a 100% direct callback to Alan Moore's run, and specifically it's technically his second issue, The Anatomy Lesson. So basically, Swamp Thing, his body, recreated human anatomy with plant life. And so he's now kind of unlocked those secrets himself to create, a little race essentially of swamp people. Though I'm curious, so this character Indigo in here, he's like kind of a nuisance. He's teasing that Swamp Thing. There's something, there's going to be some kind of betrayal or reveal or nefarious things and things like that. So this is just stretching, but I think the possible huge reveal would be that this version of Swamp Thing is actually more of the true Alec Holland version rather than the Alan Moore thing. So perhaps his origins either way start with Alec Holland, but perhaps there's essentially the human underneath, and the human mind and everything like that, the true human past, rather than the imitation human just after Alec died. So I think that's a possible reveal here as we move forward with that stuff. Obsidian's use here is weird. I'm not sure where they're going with that. It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I'm actually like kind of half contemplating buying a page from it, but I can't really land on one. And I might just see what pages are for sale in the next issue.
I was going to say you could just wait for 1 and 2 to come out and then debate. Yeah. But it's interesting to bring up Alec Holland because there's been hints that when post Future State, when the book launches, we know this Swamp Thing when DC's regular lineup starts in March. We've learned that Swamp Thing is not an ongoing; it's 10 issues. But maybe if it sells well, it gets turned into an ongoing. It has, I think, the best chances of doing that from this lineup of books, post Future State. But they've at least, there's hints going around, or at least like rumblings that it's not going to be Alec Holland, and it'll be like a new host post Future State. So we'll see that. I don't know if we'll use that as a lead in here, but just interesting to note. But it is the same creative team. Dan, do you know who Obsidian is?
Nope. I don't really have a lot of familiarity with Swamp Thing, but this issue has piqued my interest a little bit. I'm not going to say I'm going to run out and buy all of the Alan Moore Swamp Thing stuff, but
you should.
I know I should. Eventually I will, but I think this hasn't hindered that progress towards doing that. So yeah, I mean, I like it. Like you guys said, you guys pretty much hit on everything I was going to talk about. The art's amazing. Yeah, we'll have to read the next issue and find out.
Yeah, and this is only 2, right? So I mean, yeah, I think this isn't a 4 issue. All right, Vince, bring us home with Harley Quinn.
Yeah, Harley Quinn #1, Stephanie Phillips and Simone DeMeo. I'm a little intrigued by this because it seems DC is finally moving a little bit away from the kind of Jimmy Palmiotti, Amanda Conner iteration of Harley that started, actually technically I guess it's really the New 52 Suicide Squad version of Harley, and then because theirs wasn't a launch title, but obviously they expanded the current characterization of her and appearance and everything like that. It looks like DC's, they're slightly tweaking the character. And the ongoing following Future State is at least initially going to be drawn by Riley Rossmo, which I think is a pretty daring choice. But the artist here isn't as exciting to me. I think that I believe it's a dude. I could be wrong in that aspect as well, but I believe he drew that Tom Taylor Boom book that we tried out, and I think you guys lasted like 2 issues on, and I dropped it after 1. Harley, in the actual story, she's in some kind of dystopian Gotham, freed of superheroes. There's a reformed Scarecrow trying to get her to cooperate, and it's kind of like a Suicide Squad-esque setup where it's like, you help me, and your sentence gets lessened or lifted. Honestly, I kind of lost interest halfway through this issue. In isolation, I think this artist is good, and I think his style perfectly would translate to animation or something like that. But there's just something about the storytelling in this issue, and I'm not going to blame it all on the art. I think some of it was the writing, and also honestly, just like this status quo doesn't interest me that much. This version of the future, it just kind of all mushed together. So I actually think I'm skipping next issue, even if there's only one more issue, and I'll just give it another try after Future State with that Riley Rossmo art and the true #1. And clearly, and the one last thing I'll say is that we talked about the different continuities and stuff. Clearly, as far as I can tell, obviously this doesn't take place in the same time/place as the next Batman.
I disagree because they mentioned the magistrate, so it does.
Okay, but I don't know how that lines up. It's kind of weird. I mean, yeah, I guess the next Batman does have a lot of the masks are gone, all that stuff. But like maybe it's the art style here. It makes it look way more futuristic and things like that.
That it does. I feel the same way on this that you do. I'm probably not reading #2, as I quickly lost interest. And I think one of the biggest problems was the coloring, because people's hair are the same color as the wall behind them, and I can't figure out where hair ends and walls begin. A lot of bad coloring here. I don't know, and the line works were not defined well enough at all. I don't know what happened, but I did like the art when it looked good.
It's almost like they took a page out of J.J. Abrams' book, because I feel like there's like so many lens flares in like some of these like panels, and it's just really distracting sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I think
And
if this was like a TV show, what?
It said it's 2021, and you're going with a JJ lens flare joke.
Yes, it never gets old. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's a decade now.
Whatever, I can still use it. Yeah, I don't know I'm not sure if I'll stick around for the second part of this or whatever, how many ever parts there are for this.
That was 2. So
I'm off. I'm out. It's a no for me, dog.
Yeah, so we're all out on Harley Quinn. I will come back when the real book starts, because I want to see the Riley Rossmo art, like Vince. So that's it for Future State for week 1. We read those books. We didn't read Flash, but upon reading reviews, it doesn't look like we missed anything out of the ordinary or exceptional with Flash. So that's week 1 in the books. How do you fare? How do you want to pull out like a mental scorecard? How'd this rank for you, Vince?
I think first week pretty good. I mean, we're reading everything except for 1, 5 out of 6. So given that we read almost all the offerings, I would say like 3 out of 5 hit, which is pretty decent track record. I mean, that's pretty much what you expect from most of these comic publishers. I think Wonder Woman and Swamp Thing for me are very good. And then next Batman is kind of like a almost very good. And then the other 2 were kind of average or even on the negative end, but I think it's a pretty good track record so far.
Yeah, I can see that. I half agree with you. I mean, we also I do want to make note, all 3 of us are not continuing on with only 1 book, so I feel like that's pretty good. But also, we didn't read fully 6, so who's to say if, that could be better or worse. But yeah, I'm on the fence about reading Superman Metropolis #2 because I just didn't care. So yeah, I mean, I'm continuing on the Batman. That has the potential to be pretty good and better. Wonder Woman, I think that'll get better. And then Swamp Thing, I'm just interested, and I thought it was pretty good from the set. So yeah, I would. I don't know. I'd score it like an 8, 7. I'm gonna go with a 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the one I'm most looking forward to is Wonder Woman. I think that one has the most promise in my book, at least. So we'll see.
All right. Well, with that, we still have the regular show to do, so we'll be right back with that in about a few minutes. But that's it for Future State Week 1.